Welcome to the deep dive. We're here to help you cut through the noise, take your sources, and really get you the core knowledge you need fast. Today, we're doing a bit of a high-speed tour, you could say, of one of the most dynamic economic zones out there, Southeast Asia. Our mission is pretty simple.
Yeah.
We want to unpack the scale, the drivers, and, yeah, crucially, the sort of hidden structural challenges behind Southeast Asia's digital economy. And when we talk scale, we have to start with this number that, honestly, it stopped us cold in the sources, this
Right.
economy. Forecasted to hit a massive USD 330 billion by 2025.
Yeah, 330 billion. It's staggering.
It really is. I mean, just take a second on that. Think about the human transformation behind that dollar figure. This is rapid change for, what, over 600 million people in the region?
And the acceleration is key here.
Right,
Yeah.
because it was already at USD 200 billion just at the end of 2022. So we're looking at, what, 65% growth projected in just 3 years? That's exponential.
It absolutely is.
Okay, so let's unpack this. What on earth is driving this kind of growth? And, maybe more importantly, what happens when all that digital demand slams into the physical reality of, moving stuff across islands and congested cities?
Well, that 65% growth, it isn't just a nice number. It's really a sign of mass adoption.
Yeah.
And it's being pushed by these two huge forces, these tailwinds, demographics and digitization. It's basically a whole market coming online at once and going straight to mobile.
Straight to mobile, bypassing desktops almost.
Almost entirely. And what's really fascinating is just the speed, the velocity of new users. We aren't talking slow, gradual internet growth here.
No.
No, this is like a huge injection of new digital participants. Get this. Over 100 million new internet users came online in Southeast Asia just between 2020 and 2023.
Wow. 100 million. That's like plugging an entire country, say the size of the Philippines, into the internet economy in 3 years.
Exactly. And like you said, they're not logging on with bulky old desktops.
Yeah.
The digital readiness is there because smartphone penetration, it's over 70% in most of these countries.
Okay, so the device is already in their hands.
Right. The physical barrier to getting online is almost zero. Then you mix that readiness with a really young mobile native population, people who just skip straight to digital payments, digital shopping. Well, that's your perfect fuel mix right there.
Yeah, it's a generation that doesn't need an instruction manual for an app. They basically grew up using them.
Precisely. And, when we talk about the internet economy here, we're not just thinking basic online shopping.
Right, it's broader than just buying stuff.
Much broader. The scope covers e-commerce, sure, but also online travel, ride-hailing, and digital media. This whole basket of services is fundamentally changing daily life, daily interactions, and crucially, expectations for millions.
Expectations. That feels like the critical next piece, doesn't it? These aren't just people occasionally buying something online. They're immersed. Daily digital citizens.
All immersed.
We're seeing things become totally routine, like e-groceries, digital payments everywhere, even live stream commerce. That's just standard now. The whole consumer journey is way more complex. It's moved beyond just simple online, buying into what the sources are calling omni-channel shopping.
Right, omnichannel.
Yeah.
And put simply, that's just where the line between discovering something online and maybe buying physically or vice versa just disappears.
Okay, give me an example.
Sure. So maybe a shopper sees a product demo on a TikTok live stream, right? Digital discovery. Then they use an app to order it, maybe for quick pickup at a nearby convenience store or physical fulfillment, and then they track it, pay for it, manage returns, all online. It's meant to be seamless.
Seamless. But that level of convenience, that high expectation for everything working perfectly, that must put immediate, intense pressure on the last mile logistics. Actually getting the thing from the warehouse to someone's door.
Oh, absolutely. And
Yeah.
that last mile,
Wow.
that's where the financial tension really starts to bite.
Okay, here's where I thought it got really interesting. And this feels like a key insight for anyone looking at the region, strategy-wise or investment-wise. The expectation for things like, say, free delivery is going through the roof.
It is.
Which forces platforms to rethink their entire last-mile cost structure. But, and this is the kicker, the amount of money they make per order. It varies wildly depending on the country.
Massively.
So look at this detail. Average basket value in Singapore, pretty high. Consumer spend, on average, $62 USD per order.
Right, $62. That's a healthy number, gives you margin to play with. You can absorb some shipping costs.
But then you look at these huge, really populous markets like Vietnam and Indonesia, which are, central to hitting that $330 billion number.
Like the growth engines.
And the basket values just plummet. They range from only 17 to 21 USD.
$17, yeah. And that variation, that difference between $62 and $17, that's the core strategic challenge. It dictates pretty much everything else.
Oh.
Well, think about the unit economics, right? If your average order is $62, okay, you can run promotions, you can heavily subsidize fast shipping, maybe even free shipping, and probably still make a decent margin.
Makes sense.
But if your average order is $17, your ability to absorb any shipping cost is razor thin. You just cannot afford to deliver an item across a complex island chain for free or even cheap.
So, hang on. If they can't really afford to subsidize shipping on these smaller, more frequent orders in huge markets, how sustainable is that 65% growth forecast, really? Is this whole thing kind of a house of cards built on delivery subsidies they can't maintain?
That's the tension. Exactly. And that's why success, true sustainable success, depends so heavily on hyper-localization. It's not optional.
Okay.
Platforms, brands, everyone. They absolutely must tailor their pricing models, their promotions, their entire logistics strategy country by country, sometimes even city by city. Localization isn't just translating the app language.
No, it's about the money.
It's about aligning the cost structure with the local purchasing power and the local delivery reality. If you try to run a Singapore strategy in Vietnam, well, you'll bankrupt your delivery partners very quickly.
Wow. Okay, that makes the logistics challenge feel less like just optimizing routes and more about, I don't know, raw physics. The digital demand is soaring, but it keeps hitting this wall of concrete, traffic jams, and actual water separating islands.
That's a great way to put it. We see this huge paradox. The demand side is absolutely world-class digital sophisticated consumers. But the regional logistics capacity needed to serve that demand. It's incredibly uneven, and that creates these bottlenecks that genuinely threaten to choke off that $330 billion boom.
Uneven how?
Well, you've got pockets of real excellence. Think Singapore and Malaysia. They have genuinely world-class infrastructure, top-tier warehousing, efficient customs, good road networks. Goods tend to move pretty smoothly there relatively quickly.
Okay, the established hubs. But the moment you look at the big archipelagic nations, the ones really driving that massive user growth we talked about.
The picture changes completely, yes. Indonesia, the Philippines, they struggle significantly purely because of their geography. You're literally dealing with thousands of islands, plus massive urban congestion in cities like Jakarta or Manila.
Right.
And this leads to chronic, really severe problems. Port congestion that can delay shipments for days, sometimes weeks. Distribution is highly fragmented. Getting something from island A to island B often needs complex multimodal transport. And transit times, frequently unreliable.
Which must drive consumers crazy if they're expecting Amazon Prime-level service.
Exactly. For consumers who are now used to real-time tracking and expect free or very cheap delivery, it's a logistical nightmare playing out every single day.
Okay, so if the physical infrastructure, the roads, the ports, is lagging so far behind what consumers expect, how is the industry even managing? How are they keeping up with the demands for speed and low cost? Are they just, like, throwing money at drivers?
Not just money, no. It's technology being deployed specifically to solve physical problems. This is where advanced tech is really stepping up, trying to fill that physical gap by optimizing everything around those constraints.
Of course, what kind of tech?
Well, take AI. It's becoming crucial. Not just for, say, optimizing a delivery route within a dense city, which is complex enough,
Sure.
but for predicting demand patterns across diverse neighborhoods and even across island chains where historically getting good data was really hard. AI helps platforms allocate inventory smartly, getting it to the right local distribution hub before the order even comes in.
So AI is helping manage stock across potentially hundreds of little warehouses scattered everywhere.
That's a big part of it. And then you layer on things like IoT sensors, putting them on packages, on delivery vehicles.
Yeah.
That enables the real-time tracking everyone wants.
Right, gives the customer some visibility, even if it's slow.
Exactly. It provides transparency, which helps manage expectations when transit times are maybe unpredictable. And then inside the fulfillment centers, especially in those expensive urban areas, warehouse robotics are speeding things up.
The robots.
Yeah, automating the picking and packing. They can handle the high volume of those low-value, fast-moving items. Remember those $17 baskets really quickly within a small, expensive urban warehouse footprint. That cuts labor costs and boosts density.
Okay, so the tech isn't just about making the app look slicker. It's about making the messy physical world actually function better, faster, compensating for maybe not enough roads or bridges.
That's exactly it. And you see the big platforms, the Shoppies, the Lazadas, they're investing heavily in building out their own logistics backbone. They recognize that fulfillment capability is their competitive edge now. But it's also really important to look beyond the giants. We're seeing this explosion of 3PL third-party logistics startups. These are often local players,
Yeah.
really vital. They handle that crucial last mile for the thousands of smaller sellers who could never afford their own delivery fleet. They're like the capillaries, the circulatory system of this digital economy.
Which brings us right back to that core tension, doesn't it? The sustainability question.
Yeah.
You've got these thin margins on small orders on one side and this immense infrastructure strain and cost on the other. Can this digital economy really sustain its scale if the underlying physical logistics, especially that critical, costly last-mile delivery, can't keep pace with consumer demands for speed and, importantly, low cost?
That is the crux of it, absolutely.
Yeah.
Will those rising expectations around speed, around cost, will they eventually just overwhelm the smaller platforms, the 3PLs, everyone operating on those paper-thin margins?
Yeah.
Especially in those fragmented, geographically complex, high-cost markets like Indonesia or Vietnam.
Yeah.
We're effectively seeing a race where these digital platforms, out of necessity, are becoming almost indispensable physical infrastructure providers themselves.
So if the basic cost of just moving a bag of groceries or a small parcel around an archipelago is inherently high because of, boats and distance and bad roads, can you ever really satisfy this massive demand for free or super cheap delivery without eventually just destroying your own economics?
Well, this is precisely why the back-end systems, the logistics, have to evolve in lockstep with the digital demand. What's so fascinating now is that the digital economy story in Southeast Asia, it's not just about consumer adoption anymore.
It shifted.
Fundamentally, it's now a supply chain challenge, a logistics challenge, and honestly, a transparent messaging challenge. Success today is defined much more by fulfillment capability than just by clicks or app downloads.
Okay, so fulfillment is king.
It really is. And based on looking at the strategies that are working across the region, we can kind of boil it down to maybe 3 key requirements for brands or platforms to really thrive in this incredibly complex, high-pressure market.
Okay, what are they?
First, they absolutely have to communicate clearly and often across all the delivery stages. Consumers demand that transparency, especially if delivery might be slow or face delays. Openness builds trust.
Right, manage expectations.
Second, they need to rigorously, ruthlessly localize their omnichannel strategies. That means different pricing, different promotions, different delivery options based on those varying basket sizes and country-specific logistics costs we talked about. Singapore gets one playbook, Vietnam needs another.
Tailoring constantly.
Constantly. And third, and this ties it all together, they have to rigorously align their back-end logistics, which means having reliable 3PL partners, optimized routing, smart inventory placement they have, to align all that with their front-end promises about speed and cost. You can't promise what? You can't actually deliver reliably and affordably.
That makes perfect sense. And it brings us right back to that core lesson from this deep dive, doesn't it? The market is digital, yes. It's driven by smartphones, by apps, but success, it is utterly dependent on mastering the physical delivery. You can't just run ads. You have to reliably get that package across hundreds, maybe thousands of islands.
That's the reality on the ground.
Okay, so what does this all mean for you listening? We've covered some ground here. We've looked at the incredible scale, that $330 billion number. We've seen the absolute need for tailored consumer strategies driven by those wildly different basket values. And we've dug into the really profound physical limits of an archipelagic region that's now leaning heavily on AI and robotics just to try and move groceries and goods quickly enough to meet demand.
Yeah, the tech is patching the physical gaps.
It really is. We often talk about the digital economy in terms of slick apps, user interfaces, seamless clicks. But maybe for Southeast Asia, the real innovation, the hard part, isn't just in the app itself. It's then the sheer operational ability to deliver a small, low-value package across a gridlocked port or across 1,000 islands without going broke in the process.
Or the battle is being fought.
Exactly. So here's the question I want to leave you to mull over. If these e-commerce platforms are increasingly becoming essential physical infrastructure, like roads or utilities in a way, What responsibility do they then bear? Do they have a responsibility to ensure that their logistics capacity serves all parts of the region somewhat equally? Or is it okay to just prioritize the most profitable, easiest to reach cities and let the harder areas lag behind? Does their sheer scale create a kind of obligation to be equitable infrastructure providers? Something to think about.